Today's morning power up call. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a quick one. It's good to be back in the home base. Good to be talking to you guys from the real location, the real time. We've got some important new updates coming to the platform. I'm going to be spending some time inside of the campus today, especially inside some of the boot camp channels, helping you guys make your progress through the boot camp more quickly, add some more ideas, some more insight to help you guys move through that more efficiently. But I don't have a lot of housekeeping stuff to talk about with you today for the campus. So we are going to go straight into the content. I'm going to do a quick check just to make sure the audio is working because it looks like we're good. Okay, audio is working. Excellent. Now we're going to dive in. We're going to talk about the actual content, the idea that I mentioned in the announcement, and that is the difference between long-term and short-term thinking and how to be really good at both. Now, long-term thinking is important. Short-term thinking is important. Most people go through the world and they don't even think, first of all. But if they do think, they only think in the short term. In the time frame of 5 seconds from now. They don't even think. They just react emotionally. They're like, oh, I feel like doing this. I feel like doing that. I feel like going here. And they're moved entirely by the sort of base primary motivators in their life. They don't think. They don't actually choose the direction they're moving in. They just move as they're influenced by people in the world, right? By TV, by social media, by their friends, by teachers, by whoever, right? They just move completely reactive to outside forces. And they do this in the very, very short term. They are thinking like 5 seconds ahead. Most people do this, right? And most people do this for most of the time that they're awake and alive. And if you adopt this strategy, that's the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance will never take you anywhere you truly want to go. So most people think in the short term. Now, if you're lucky, right, you might notice this behavior in yourself and then expand the time in which you think. You might actually like plan out a whole 24 hours ahead of time and think about what you can do to make your day the most productive and valuable and enjoyable for yourself, right? That's cool, right? Short-term thinking is cool. You can make a lot of progress if you can think more than 5 seconds ahead, if you can think maybe 24 hours ahead, right? Kind of see the future, decide what your future is going to be, and move forward and make it real. I teach about how to do some element of this inside of the time management video in stage 2, which if you haven't watched, they're dead simple methods you can use to take control of your time. And they actually cover some of the principles, basically the how behind the what I'll be talking about today. So I'm going to be talking about the importance of thinking and planning and how to balance the long-term versus the short-term. But the time management video in stage 2 teaches you how to implement this on like a technical, tactical level, day to day, week by week, month by month, year by year. So if you can expand the amount of time, the time horizons you're considering, you're going to be able to make better decisions and improve the quality of your life faster than if you just stay in the impulse control part where it's just 5 seconds ahead. Now, you can take an even longer view of time as well. You can think about the entire week, the entire month, the entire year, the entire decade of your life. You can think about a lot further than just this one moment right here. Now, most people don't do this. And most people end up soft, empty, confused, depressed people pretty quickly because they only operate inside of a short time frame, right? If you are thinking about what you want to be 10 years from now, or at least a direction of where you want to be 10 years from now, it's going to help you. It's going to help inform the decisions you make now in the short term, right? There are certain things that don't make any sense in the short term that make a lot of sense in the long term, right? Let's go back. Let's imagine you're a bunch of cavemen sitting around, right, in a cave, and you're like, "Hey, let's go back. Let's say savannah, because savannah is more fun, right? Caveman is cool, but let's go living on the savannah in Africa, 30,000 years ago, and your tribe of people, and you're like running around chasing stuff. You're like chasing down antelope, eating them. You're killing like you're running away from tigers. That's your life, right? Or lions, I guess, if we're in Africa. Now, day by day, you on the short term, you are incentivized to spend every waking second chasing down new calories because that's what you need to survive, right? If you have spare time, why not go find some food to eat so you can increase your chances of survival, right? However, if you started thinking, beyond those next 5 seconds or that day or that year, you might think to yourself, you know what? If I invest some time now, I can build a better shelter. And this better shelter will give me better protection against the elements. It'll be safer against tigers and lions. And sure, it's going to take a lot of energy now, but it's going to pay dividends over the future, over the next 10 years. It's going to keep my kids from getting snatched up by lions in the middle of the night. Maybe I should build this thing. And you could then turn around and invest that time, hours and hours and energy, like calories of energy into creating this thing that would then serve you over the long term, right? Meanwhile, you still got to solve the problem of how you got to eat. So you got to balance both of these things. But if you find ways to invest in things that will benefit you in the long term and you do this enough, they will pay dividends in the future that you can always rely upon and help you kind of level up and increase your output for decades and decades to come. You'll be miles and miles ahead. Now, if you take that tribe, right, and you give that tribe shelter and you teach them how to make better tools, and like they take time and emit better tools, and they maybe invest some time in developing some level of agriculture and improving their hunting systems, they will have a genetic advantage over a tribe who does not do so. Like these people will be able to reproduce and live and thrive better than ones who only thought in the short term. That's a weird hypothetical from 30,000 years ago, but if you take it into today's terms, it's very, very similar. If somebody spends all of their time only working on problems that are here now for the next 24 hours, right? They're worried about things that are occurring right now in this part of their life, and they don't look forward in the future and think about things that they could build now that will benefit them for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years, right? Then this guy, the guy who's only focused on the short term, is going to lose the guy who's long-term focused, right? If you say, you know what, I need to be doing these activities, I need to be going through here, but I really need to develop this skill, human persuasion, copywriting, because if I take some time, just invest in this long-term asset, which is the skill, it will pay me dividends for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years of my life, right? Being extremely optimistic with your aging, right? Versus the guy who just says, you know what, I just got to do the stuff. I got to do some more work. I got to I want to like sit on TikTok and scroll through videos because it feels like fun for the next 5 seconds, right? It takes 5 hours to do that, right? Those two guys, the guy who's able to look forward into the longer time horizon and invest his time now in things that will not only benefit him now, but in the future, he wins every single time. Over the long term, over the next year, over the next 10 years, he wins. He gets his dreams. He lives the life he wants. While the guy who thinks in the short term only, he loses. Now, if you go too far the other way and only think about the long term and ignore short term problems, then you lose as well. Short term problems, like if you were trying to build, let's go back to the Africa example, you're trying to build this shelter, a nice cool fence to protect your tribe, right? And a tiger or a lion jumps out to eat you, and you're like, whoa, that's a short term problem. That's only going to affect me now. I'm here thinking about the 20,000 year thing. You're going to die and you're not going to live, right? The same thing happens when you're going through your journey as a young copywriter. There are things you need to do today to live today and to solve the problems of today. The problems of today aren't unimportant, right? You need to deal with them most of the time. The important ones, you have to deal with them, right? For example, if you're in the process of doing the sales process inside of the campus, you're doing outreach, you're sending out emails, that has to get done, right? Like you need to do that in order to solve the short-term problems of you don't have any money. However, you need to make sure that with all of the extra time you have outside of solving those short-term problems, you invested into improving your system. You invested into improving your skill, something that's going to serve you over like 20 years. You can invest it in improving your copywriting outreach program, like your actual template, the way you're reaching out to people. That's something that's going to benefit you over the next 6 months, let's say, help you get your first couple clients. You need to take the extra time outside of solving those short-term problems and invest them into solving the long-term problems. And you need to always go through operating with those long-term goals in mind, right? Those long-term desires. Now, you don't have to go all crazy with this. You don't need to like create a crazy vision board or like write down everything that you're going to be in 10 years. Like you don't need to do that. That's not terribly necessary. You do need to have a direction and you do need to understand the long-term things that are going to give you an advantage, right? Forever. There are certain things that if you invest in them, they always will pay a dividend forever, right? Communication and persuasion, those abilities, no matter where you are for the next 50, 60, 100 years, being good at that will give you an advantage over someone who's not. It'll give you an advantage over yourself in that situation, right? That's something you can always invest your time and energy in and experience a positive dividend, right? Investing in your physical health, taking time to do some push-ups, to train, to eat right, to do those things, that is something that will always pay a dividend. Your health will always pay you back over time versus being unhealthy, right? Your energy levels over the next 50, 100 years will be significantly better if you train diligently in addition to everything else you do in your life. There are certain things that you don't even have to have 1,000% crystal perfect clear vision of your future, but you know that if you invest in them, it will benefit you over the long term. You need to make time for those things, and you need to manage those things. Now, when you do this, when you kind of think this way, you're going to think of some things that you need to do today that are extremely urgent, important. If they don't happen today, you're dead. Tiger's jumping out. You got to take care of it. You got to solve this problem. And then there are things that you need to do that aren't necessarily urgent, right? Like it's not the benefit or the consequences are going to happen now. It might happen tomorrow or a week from now or a year from now, but they're just as impactful on your life, right? You need to make time for those things, and you need to plan out those things. And you're going to come up with a list. You're going to have, here are the urgent things I need to do right now. Here are the things that are important that are going to help me improve over the long term. You need to sit down, plan out when you're going to do those things, and then you need to attack that list with tenacity, with an insane workload. You need to drive forward with like massive, massive speed, right? The first law of HU is speed. You move forward with speed. You attack it as quickly as you possibly can. And what that does is you're optimizing the short term, your output. And if you do that, if you continually go through that optimization process where you fit, let's say you have a day, you have 4 days work, like for a normal person that's just kind of bebopping through their life, and you can force that into one day and you can maintain that rate of speed over the long term, you've given yourself 3 extra lifetimes compared to someone who just goes through at one time speed, right? You need to approach everything in the short term with a massive amount of urgency and speed, because it magnifies your long-term benefits. You can live multiple lifetimes in one lifetime if you just cut out all the crap that other people waste their time on, right? You can achieve way more in the same amount of time by just moving through with speed, right? So as you're planning out long-term, as you're planning out the things that are going to shift your life over the long term, as you have some level of direction of who you're trying to become, and ask yourself what needs to happen, what things will give you the advantages you need to take advantage of those opportunities and reach that point. You need to identify those things, and then you need to move through your task, the things that you need to do, the things that were going to help you get there with as much speed as humanly possible. Cram as much activity into the short term as possible to get more results in the long term. That is a habit that, if you can develop it, will magnify your time and give you more time compared to someone else. And like when it comes down to like an effect in your life, the effect is it feels like you have more time compared to someone else. So we talked about long term, we talked about short term, we talked about the importance of expanding your time horizon, we talked about the importance of investing in things that are going to benefit and pay dividends over the course of decades versus just today or the next 5 seconds. We've talked about cutting out the little impulse things that aren't really valuable and removing those so that you can then focus on things that are going to improve your life. We've talked about how to actually implement this to some degree. You can find more instead of the stage 2 time management video. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. If you've already watched it and know you're not doing it completely well, you're not actually living by those principles, I highly recommend you watch it again. Make a decision to improve the way you manage your time, because if you do that over the long term, you're going to get significantly more out of your life and you'll achieve more of your long-term and meaningful, compelling goals than if you just go through the life reacting to stimuli and just doing what you have to do today because, there's a tiger, right? It's better to be deliberate and to plan and then to move forward with intention, because it will help you become who you're seeking to become. The greats of all time, the world conquerors, the great artists, the great inventors, the great businessmen and economists, or I wouldn't say that, capitalists of our day and age, they didn't get there by accident. They didn't just, stumble into this, right? They looked forward with a vision and they planned meticulously and they executed with ferocity, right? And sure, maybe things changed a little bit, but they've always invested in things in the long term will give them the biggest rewards. And they were able to use those to bend the world and create something completely new. If you seek to do the same in your own life, you need to adopt the mindset and the principles that I've discussed today. You need to start thinking in the long term and investing your energy into things that will always benefit you, that will pay you dividends from this moment until the day you die. And I firmly believe that the program that I share, the stuff inside of the Copywriting Bootcamp, the principles of human persuasion and communication and capitalism and copywriting, these are principles that will serve you forever. So go out, use them, learn them, use the principles I talked about today to better manage your time, to better manage your perspective, and to live ultimately that life of freedom that you seek to have. It's been a good call. We'll do this again tomorrow. I will talk to you guys then.